Baseball struggles as they hit 7 straight losses in the middle of their season. Hello, I'm Penelope Cruz.
And I'm Brendan McNasty. Golf is rising like a phoenix from the ashes at just about every invite they head out to, perhaps due to the facilities. You're watching LaSalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics, SportsLine.
Hello, I'm Anna Gomez, and welcome to this week's edition of SportsLine. We've had some ups, some downs, but one thing is for sure, fledgling SportsLine reporter Brian Gelbach will be wandering his way onto the desk for some exploring headlines.
In terms of sports, our bat-wielding teams are in a bit of a drought. Along with lacrosse, our sports teams, or spring teams rather, appear to be taking a snooze in the meat of the season.
But first, let's take a look at what went down this past week for our athletes. It was a tough week for baseball as they were swept by VCU and taken down by both Penn and Villanova. In Game 1 against VCU, Joey Ravert struggled, giving up 4 hits and allowing 3 runs in the 5th. LaSalle came up with only 2 hits, falling 4-1. In Game 2, the Rams beat the Explorers in a clean 9-1. LaSalle had 7 hits on the night, but were unsuccessful when it came to getting the runs in. But in Game 3, it looked like the Explorers had a chance, until the 9th when Tom Fazzini gave up a leadoff walk to Cody Acker. The VCU senior scored a tying run on a throwing error and an RBI single from Matt Davis. Walker Haymaker hit an RBI groundout to score the go-ahead run, allowing VCU to edge the Explorers 2-1 to sweep out the series.
On Tuesday, the men stopped over at Penn only to fall 7-3. Joey Ravert and Drew Harmoz hit solo shots, and Jared Malone hit an RBI double, the only runs for the Explorers. After 3 earned runs, the Explorers were shut out for 4 innings after Penn tallied 6 runs late in the game. In the hopes of at least one city rival win this week, the Blue and Gold headed to Villanova only to take another heartbreaking 5-2 loss. Justin Jacko and Chase Arnold each came up with an RBI and went 1 for 3, while Jared Malone was able to score both runs for the Explorers. Once the 6th inning hit, pitcher Mike Anthony struggled returned. He allowed a walk and 2 singles and was taken out of the game with 1 out. LaSalle quietly finished off the game to take their record to 10-27.
Dayton swept a 3-game series against softball this past weekend. The 21-16 Flyers shut the Explorers out in Game 1 on Saturday the 21st, thanks to the golden arm of Dayton's Amanda Cash. The Flyer allowed just 4 hits on the doubleheader on Saturday. A late in the game offensive effort pushed Dayton to a final 6-0. In Game 2, Mackenzie Peace returned to the mound to duke it out in a stalemate. Neither teams were giving up much until the 5th inning. Freshman breakout star Emma Schwagert knocked a single RBI homer to center field. It would be the only run LaSalle would find as Dayton answered back immediately with 2 runs of their own. Dayton maintained a 2-1 lead through the end of the game. And on Sunday, LaSalle returned to the diamond, but was halted upon arrival. Dayton took an early 2-0 lead and never let go. Suzanne Swinicki was the sole point scorer for the Explorers off an unearned run.
The women were the underdog going into a Drexel matchup on Tuesday. Mary Kate Scott allowed just 2 hits in the shutout from Drexel's Sharon Zamora. The first of the 2 runs for the Explorers was off a double from Bridget McGee to send Suzanne Swinicki sprinting home. In the 7th, a slew of base hits allowed Mackenzie Ober to single up the middle to move Tori Goli home. LaSalle had the opportunity to extend their lead. Michelle Haggerty fouled in when she walked off after Ober stole second. But a pitching change for Drexel brought in pitcher Katie Haley, who struck Christina Bascara out. A final shutout inning from Scott kept the Dragons at bay, and softball tallied a 2-0 win on their now 11-21 season.
Thank you, Brendan. So for crew this week, they returned to the Schuylkill again for the Kerr Cup, which is a really historic event for Drexel. It's gone on for years and years and years. dozens of teams from around the country come and compete. LaSalle, they fared pretty well, actually. We had men's rowing. The novice four, they placed 12th out of 18th. And it was coxed by Grant Maddock. And it was in 6 minutes and 12 seconds, which is actually their best time to date. And then we also had men's varsity 8 who competed in the petite final, but they were just 3 seconds off from competing, or their time was just 3 seconds off from a score in the grand final. So they were not far off for this young team. And the women also competed in the petite final for varsity 8. They took 7 minutes and 12 seconds, and that was coxed by Caitlin Reyes.
You know, Anna, it's interesting to me because at least for the last couple of seasons, the team has been in the bottom of the middle of the pack. And I don't know what it is about this season necessarily, but we're seeing a lot of improvement out on the water for them. I'm happy to see that there's been some success, and that's a story that we're going to follow around for the rest of the season. But moving on, Sunday, April 18th was a big day for Explorers Golf on account of our men's golf team hosting the Finnegan Invitational. This year at the Philadelphia Country Club, the Invitational hosted 14 teams. Out of the 14 teams, LaSalle placed 6th, but was only 6 shots away from taking it all from Drexel, who went home with a first-place finish. Not a bad performance overall from our Explorers. An individual standout from this weekend is LaSalle freshman Andrew Reynolds. Reynolds offered a big contribution to the team this Sunday when he shot a 71 under par, which is a collegiate low for the Explorer.
Finds themselves in a tough 3-game slide after games against George Mason and dastardly UMass. First, on April 15th, George Mason showed up to the McCarthy and immediately went on a 4-1 run. Despite Allie Elgin-Fritz putting up a valiant effort to cut the lead to 2 in the opening minutes, George Mason followed up with another 4 goals to round out the half 9-3. The second half didn't fare much better for the Explorers, even with Elgin-Fritz and Caitlin Fay tallying 4 and 3 goals respectively. The Patriots took the win 14-8. And later that weekend, LaSalle traveled out to Amherst, Massachusetts to take on the UMass Minutemen. For about 5 minutes, it looked like the Explorers were controlling the game with an early 3-1 lead. Then, UMass decided to rally back with a horrifying 9-goal run to take the game into the half. The nearly undefeated UMass tacked on another 9 goals in the second to send the Explorers back to Philly with a 19-6 loss. With only a few games left in the A-10 conference, LaSalle's record drops to 4-7.
Saturday, April 16th, women's tennis stayed close to home for a rematch against Temple. However, the last regular game of the season went much like the first when the Owls shut them out 7-0. In doubles duo, Jayla Smith and Ayla Santorelli put up a fight, scoring 2 points early in the set, but succumbed to the efforts of Temple's Monet Willis and Dina Carina to give them the point. Women's tennis closed out their 26th campaign with a final A-10 game versus Davidson. Going into the A-10 championships, Davidson was 3rd seed to the young LaSalle's 14th seed. The Wildcats shut the Explorers out 4-0. A bright spot was in the first set when Allie Santorelli put up 2 points early before Davidson's Anna Catherine Fester retaliated back quickly, winning the round. Well, Anna, season's over for tennis, but moving on now to exploring headlines, here to join us for the segment, for the first time, thespian Brian Gelback. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm good, Brendan. Let's get to it. LaSalle men's basketball continues its search for future players. On April 20th, high school senior Saul Fury has signed a Ford National Letter of Intent to become an Explorer, is a 6-foot guard, and has spent the last year playing for nationally ranked number 4 Putnam Sciences Academy. Originally hailing from Zimbabwe, Fury averaged over 12 points a game and connected on 107 3-point shots in his final season of high school ball. We here at LaSalle would like to welcome the newest addition to the coaching staff, Matt Brady. Formerly the head coach at James Madison, Brady replaces former assistant Will Bailey, who has taken another assistant job at St. Louis. In his 8 seasons with the Dukes, Brady has tallied 139 wins, a CAA conference championship, and 3 postseason appearances. Also looking towards the future, the volleyball team has named 3 more recruits for next season, bringing their total to 7 incoming freshmen. Setter Katie Woods from Long Island, outside hitter Maddie Mack from Wisconsin, and Lee Brow player Haley Belsick from Chicago will all vie for time on the court this fall for our LaSalle Explorers. The volleyball team has finished with 6 wins this season and has 4 graduating seniors.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to see that volleyball is actually bumping up the roster a little bit. We are losing a few key players that really made the team really great this past season, even though they struggled. But that takes us to our first commercial. When we come back, we'll have some more talk about volleyball.
Welcome back. Well, Anna, one of my favorite segments that we used to do has been sitting on the shelf for the better part of a year, but it is my distinct pleasure to dust it off. Please enjoy the latest edition of Coaches and Coffee, this time with volleyball head coach Caitlin Rumgala. Take a look.
Cute.
It's the most.
Rumgala, Coach, how are you doing this morning?
Good, thank you for having me.
Did she cut
Let's
her
start
hair or is
at
it
the
back?
beginning.
Okay.
So,
It's just
you were a player at St. John's.
Correct.
How has that impacted your?
Oh yeah, that's why I
performance as a
waited.
coach so far
I
in
was
your coaching
waiting.
career?
I was like,
A lot of different ways. So I think first, just having been through the same experience as my players, I have a real life scenario that I'm able to basically understand everything that they're going through on a day-to-day basis. When I was at St. John's, I had a wonderful experience. I had a great coach and mentor. And while I was there, she really encouraged me to pursue a coaching career. And I was almost like a student coach when I was a player on the team. So we were very successful, and I think part of that was because of the relationship she had with her players. And I try to mimic that with my own team. So the year after I graduated, the team continued on with really strong success and had established themselves in the Big East. And it's similar to how we're trying to build a program here. We weren't as successful my freshman year at St. John's, and by my junior year, we were at the top of the conference. And the educational part of the student-athlete experience is really important to me. Like I said, I graduated school in 3 years, and I do have my master's from Lehigh in education. And it's one of the things that I pride myself on as a coach, of having that understanding of what the players' needs are in the classroom, and hopefully being able to excel in the classroom as well. But I've also like being in an educational environment. So I feel that I thrive as a coach just being in an institution of higher ed and being able to have intellectual conversations with peers about different topics. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to get my master's degree.
We were talking before shooting the segment that there's going to be 7 new freshmen coming in for the upcoming season. What are your expectations for them? They're going to be green, obviously, as freshmen and rookies in the A10. But what type of expectations do you have for them as they're new members of the team?
Yeah. I think one of the things we've worked very, very hard at over the past 2 seasons is changing the culture of the team. And I have to give a lot of credit to the girls who were here before I arrived, and their due diligence and how much effort and intention they had on making this program better. And now they're graduating, and we're bringing in some new faces. But we did have a bit of a younger team out on the court last year. So for most of the conference season, we started 3 freshmen and 3 sophomores. So they'll still be here and returning, and that will at least have a pretty solid foundation for the group. The freshmen that are coming in are all going to try to compete for playing time through preseason. They all want to do that, and we'll see what happens. But now that culture's set and the expectations are set for, hey, this is how we do things here, I think it will be easier transition for them.
What is one concrete goal that you have for your team going into next season?
100% to make it into the conference tournament. So right now there's 10 teams in the conference, and the top 6 go to the tournament. my first year we were in the 7th place slot, and there's a big gap between that 6th and 7th place team. So realistically, we have to win about 5 more conference matches to be able to make it into the tournament. I think we're starting to close that gap every season, and hopefully we can definitely bridge it this year and join that group in postseason play.
How do you take time away from the game?
I think it's important to take some time for yourself. Absolutely. I tell the girls that on their day off, they need to do something for themselves and not just do schoolwork, not just go do extra conditioning, but actually take something and do something fun. Right now, I'm in the midst of wedding planning, so
congratulations. Oh my goodness.
Getting married July 30th, so that pretty much takes up all of my extra free time. My fiance just moved here from Virginia. He was working at George Mason, so we're just establishing a life here for ourselves and getting everything in order for that July wedding. So that takes up a lot of time.
That's July. That's sneaking up.
It is. It's getting very close. So bridal shower next weekend, and I'm very excited about it.
How is the planning for that going currently right now?
It's pretty good. I mean, I know myself, I'm not the crazy bridezilla. I like things that people can just get it done for me. So we picked a venue that does a lot of the initial groundwork, now it's just a matter of all the details. So interestingly enough, our season starts about a week after the wedding, so we'll probably postpone the honeymoon until later on in the year, but we're pretty excited.
Where are you guys hoping to go for your honeymoon? Do you know the destination yet, or?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a traveler. I've been a bunch of places. I've been to China twice. I've been to Thailand. I've been to South America. I've been to Europe. So there's a few highlights that I would like to hit. I've never been to Hawaii, so that would be, I think, a nice option. And ironically, I've never been to Italy, so that would be another place that I think both of us would like to go.
So my oldest brother James is actually getting married in October, and they're doing a smaller ceremony. I don't even know if this is an appropriate question, but what are you hoping your wedding to look like?
I mean, it's. Is
it going to be volleyball themed? Is it a volleyball themed wedding?
So my fiance is a coach as well.
There you go. Beautiful.
So our favors are volleyball candies that we're actually making, but. No, it's about 150 people. It's here, and I grew up out in Trooper, Audubon area, so it's at Visitation in Trooper, and then the reception's in Valley Forge. So it's more of a local wedding, but we have family flying in, and it will be not a huge wedding, but definitely on a bit of a larger scale, I would say.
Okay, so final question.
Yep.
This is the most personal question I can possibly ask you.
Okay.
What was the last thing you watched on Netflix?
I started watching season 2 of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which is a ridiculous show, but I just find it absolutely hilarious. And like I said, my fiance would probably kill me for saying that because he thinks it's just absolutely insane. But we've also been rewatching House of Cards, so Netflix, it's kind of both ends of the spectrum.
Well, Coach, I obviously need to catch up on my Netflix.
So riddle me this, Anna Gomez, were you aware that Coach Rimgala is getting married within the next couple months? Because I did not.
No, we did not. I don't think anyone knew.
Yeah, so I go into this interview. I'm expecting to go the run-of-the-mill, to talk about the team and let's get into your personal life. And she's like, yeah, I'm getting married in July. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So just complete left turn in the best possible way. But the interview was great. She's such a charismatic person. She's definitely got the brain to be a head coach of a collegiate sports team. So I'm excited. I think they're going to go plays the next couple seasons. So.
Well, thank you, Brendan.
Yeah.
Looking towards the future, there is plenty of LaSalle sports action this upcoming week, so let us highlight the games ahead. After taking a week off, track and field gets back into action with a pair of meets starting on Friday. The squad will split duty between the Larry Ellis Invite and the Widener Invitational on Saturday.
Baseball will test their luck out this week on another A-10 team in UMass starting April 22nd. The Minutemen are currently matching LaSalle's 2-7 record in conference play. On Tuesday, April 26th, LaSalle will take on a visiting Bucknell team for a single matchup starting at 3 at DeVincent Field.
George Mason will challenge softball this weekend, starting with a doubleheader on Saturday. The tight Mason squad is currently 6-7 in the conference. On Wednesday, April 27th, softball faces off against St. Joe's in a cross-city doubleheader.
Men's and women's rowing returns to Boathouse Row for the second week in a row to race in the Bergen and Kelly Cups on Saturday, April 23rd.
Women's lacrosse is starting to finish their A-10 play for the season with 2 games on the road this weekend against George Mason and George Washington and Richmond. For more on the details, let's take it to Sophia Sotomayor for this week's marquee matchup.
a substantial loss of 19-6. This 13-point difference should give them the motivation they need to win the next game at George Washington. As of now, the team needs to go back to the drawing board and create a strategy to reverse the Colonials this weekend. They should do whatever homework and to the list. Currently, the team is in the slumps with a total of 7 losses in the past couple of months, with only 4 game wins to add to the scoreboard. This past week alone, the team has lost 2 games, making it 9 defeated games altogether. While the team is in a desperate need of a comeback, 2 players stood out at the game this past Sunday against the University of Massachusetts. In the match, sophomore Brittany Edwards scored 2 goals, adding to the 6-point end total. Additionally, freshman Renee Olivet had a breakthrough moment as she scored her first goal of the season. Even though the Explorers had a substantial loss of 19-6, this 13-point difference should give them the motivation they need to win the next game at George Washington. As of now, the team needs to go back to the drawing board and create a strategy to reverse the Colonials this weekend. They should do whatever homework and study their opponents to get a sense on how the team plays the games. As of now, George Washington and LaSalle are both 2-4 in the A10 because they're tied in the conference. This is going to be a game where every play matters. Additionally, they should alternate key players throughout the game to not overwork the team. Moreover, the team should find ways to motivate themselves in the game in order to keep them adequately prepared and mindful while playing the game. If you want to see them play, check next week to see how women's lacrosse fared against George Washington this Friday, April 22nd at 4 p.m. For SportsLine, I'm Sophia Sotomayor. Go Explorers.
And now we are going to welcome our resident athletic fortune teller, Jake Smolensky, who is back on the desk for this week's Picks of the Week.
Take it. All right, so, you know, I thought it was casual Thursday today. I was really excited. I know I was gonna just have this just relaxing day. I was gonna go head out to the quad and just, you know, veg out. And then I get called and I gotta come on and do picks of the week. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, but for my first pick of the week, let me get it in the paperwork. All right. Pick number 1, we got Lacrosse versus George Washington on Friday, April 22nd. And you know what? I'm calling a win. And with that, right now GW is one of the seediest teams in the A10. They are 4-10. They even lost to St. Bonaventure, who, if you remember in that game, I think that was like our 19-goal odyssey that was kind of just kind of beautiful. We had a huge blowout against St. Bonaventure. And right now, honestly, like our combo of Ilgen Fritz and Faye has just been...
They are fire. They are absolutely.
And even if the rest of the team is falling apart around them, they're still managing to put up, you know, 4 goals in a game where they're losing by 14, or like in this past week, we lost 14-8 against George Mason, but Ilgen Fritz and Faye both put up 4 and 3 goals apiece.
Okay, but looking at this, GW is coming off from back-to-back wins, the last of which was a 20-12 win over VCU. And I know VCU is not the best. Their record is worse than both ours and GW's, but that is going to let fire under anybody's butt. So I think this is going to be a pretty close contest. I still think we can eke out the win. But Jake, let me ask you something real quick. Both goalies on the team have seen a fair amount of play time on the field. So I'm going to open up to both of you. Why do you think that is? We'll go Anna first, and we'll go to Jake. Why do you think it is that there's so much time being played by both goalies?
I think it's just to build up that roster. We've got a pretty spread out team. Yep. We're only going to be losing those 2 seniors, or we're only going to be losing Faye next year. So I think it's just to build up that roster, have a really a large just breadth of players that we can play.
Exactly, and that gives me hope. And I think just getting them in, get them rotating in and out, that's the best way to do that. That brings me to pick number 2, softball versus George Mason, and that is on the 23rd of April. And you know what? I'm calling for at least 1 win out of the 3. George Mason, you know, they're a 500 level team. They're good, they're not bad, but we are kind of on the opposite end of that. And I don't know. I just don't think we have the stamina right now to outlast most teams in the A10. But at the same time, I think that if we get Mary Kate Scott on a good day against their set of pitchers that maybe aren't as good, we could potentially, eke out that win.
Yeah, but Jacob, Murphy's Law states that we were not going to get lucky in that way. I'm thinking if Mary Kate Scott is going to pitch, she's our best bet, but she'll probably be pitching against their best pitcher, Marina Vitalic, if I'm pronouncing that correctly,
Yeah, Vitalic.
who is 12-7, and she has an ERA of 169, which is spectacular.
So does my grandmother. All right, we're going to pick number 3. We are going to men's baseball versus UMass. Rich Collin, April 22nd to the 24th. And it's 3 days in a row of straight playing against the dastardly UMass. And you know what? I'm calling 2 wins out of 3. Like UMass that's actually one of the only teams that UMass has that isn't as strong as the rest of theirs. And they just kicked us in lacrosse, they're kicking us in softball, everything. But this is one where I think this is finally going to be the payoff that men's baseball is looking for, because we're getting now to that really that middle part of the season, A10, and the big thing is they're only riding a 9-17 record, and we're right around that same area. And this is our chance to really, put together some A10 wins. The only thing is we just got to watch out for Mike Hart and also John Jennings. Jennings has 6 home runs on the season right now, and they're leading batter, and same with Hart, and they're just getting really solid on-base percentages. So overall, I think we have a chance. I think we could possibly pull out 2.
Thoughts?
Wow. Thank you, Jake. You know what? I'm gonna be really positive with Jake here too on men's baseball. It would be really nice to see them pump out a few wins against UMass, especially.
Yeah, seriously, dastardly UMass.
How do you think senior Joey Ravert's going to perform against UMass?
I honestly even the way he's been playing now, coupled with Jared Malone, who's a freshman. I've been really, really impressed with how they're playing off each other, just in terms of batting, getting things, just pulling together games. And honestly, the big challenge right now, that I've been talking to the team, the challenge right now is coaching. Coach Lake has been just making some questionable calls, and something needs to happen.
Thank you, Jake.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Jake. That just about wraps it up for us this week. If you be sure to tune in next week for our coverage on the marquee matchup, and keep up with this weekend's other sporting events by visiting goexplorers.com and following us on Twitter at SportsLine LTV. We post game updates and sneak peeks into the upcoming show.
Also check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV. We welcome you to send us your thoughts and suggestions about the show on either website.
For Brian, Sophia, Jake, Helen, and Selena, I'm Anna Gomez.
And I'm not Brendan. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at the game.